without much ado, I'd like to introduce Prof, which you all know. I mean, Prof, his full name is Professor Pat Utomi. He's from Delta State, and Prof schooled in the North, schooled in the West. He's pan-Nigerian in trait and character, He's the founder of the Center for Value and Leadership, CVL. I'm sure some of you have heard of that. And he was part of those that even from the ADC, African Democratic Congress. He's a professor at Lagos Business School, and he has served as advisor to former president when he was a very young man, something that's very hard for our generation to do now. So he also served as a chief operational officer for Volkswagen, when Volkswagen was Volks. He's a fellow and visiting lecturer in so many institutions in the world, just like he comes to America and all that. So Prof is not really, really new. He's a man that most of the things he has said in the past have come to fruition, and we respect such people. That's why we're here. So I will allow everybody here to introduce themselves with a sentence or two, one by one. So, because I know most of the people here, so I'll call you one by one and you do the introduction. So I'll start with Mr. Lou Ajibade. Mr. Ajibade, if you're there, kindly introduce yourself, sir.
My name is Lou Ajibade. Mostly people call Lou, which is okay. I'm electrical engineer. Specialized in alternative energy. Works in Atlanta, Georgia. Number one goal and drive is to make Nigeria a better country.
Go ahead, sir.
So, it's nice to meet Prof again. I met you when you came to Atlanta. I've heard so much about you. I hold your, my birthday is like yesterday. I turned 60. So congrats to me. I'm getting
Happy
to that.
birthday.
Yes. I met Prof that time, this generation. You kill that generation. But it is what it is. At least we can save it for the next generation. That's all I think. Let's now.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ajibade. The next person I'll call is on Peter Ogurikwe. Peter, you're next.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Peter Ogurikwe. I'm an ERP specialist based out in Houston, Texas.
Let's go to Biodun Adewumi. Biodun, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. My name is Biodun Adewumi. I'm a business specialist focused on innovation and growth. I started my journey from the aviation industry, but that was one of the reasons why I said I'll have to attend and meet Prof tonight, because I met him when he used to be a regular passenger for Lufthansa airline, and at the time I had a chat with him. So when I was told I'm going to meet Prof today, I said, yeah, I think it's important that I have to learn one or two things. I'm passionate about Nigeria growth. I want to see new things happening, new Nigeria, just like you always mentioned, because I want to believe that our generation is almost gone, and our children is what we are really fighting for as it is today. So that's why I said I should be part of today's discussion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Biodun. Next, I call on Dr. Godwin Ibe. Dr. Ibe, you're next.
Good evening, everyone. All protocols up there. I'm Dr. Godwin Ibe, medical doctor, world economist, and convener of Nigerians here in Russia. I happen to be privileged to be the chairman of Nigerians in Diaspora Organization Russia, focused like other NIDO organizations, focused on the socio-economic development of Nigerians in Russia, towards nation building, capacity building, increasing remittances back home. So I'm very interested on behalf of everyone in Russia, very interested in the progress of Nigeria and the enfranchisement of Nigerians in deciding its affairs. I'm very privileged to meet you, Professor Pat Utomi. I've heard so much about you, but we haven't actually met. And what I can just decipher a bit is I really appreciate your humility, finding time from a busy schedule to talk to us, to engage with us. I really value and appreciate that. And I hope that with my very little cent, it will go a long way to add to the communal intelligence in moving our great country forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Godwin. Thank you. Always speaking like a scholar. Next, I call on Femi Ajiboye. Femo, you're next.
Hi, my name is Femi Ajiboye. I'm a web developer by day and a podcaster by night. We have a podcast, How Nasiam Podcast. We talk about everything and anything, very educative, politics, religion, and everything. Prof, I've followed you from Patito's gang. So I think I was in secondary school since I started watching Patito's gang, and I would say that you're one of the people that's made me politically conscious, and I and kind of giving me that how do I put it, kind of to be conscious of our civic society, how the society should be and how things should run in a society. So I really appreciate you for taking time out to join us today, and I'm happy to meet you virtually for the first time.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, two more people. I'm going to call on my good friend, that Dr. Ade Oriade, to introduce himself. He's the only one that is on our core political group, and we're going to add it today after this discourse. Dr. Oriade, you're next, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Michael Ade Oriade. I'm a lawyer, practiced law in Nigeria for over 20 years before I moved to the United States. I hold a PhD in management. I believe I heard somewhere that Dr. Pat Utomi also schooled in Indiana. I studied at Indiana University at some point.
Go Hoosier!
Go Hoosier! Yeah. So I've been a keen follower of political activities in Nigeria. I actually participated at some point, close to 18 years. I ran for election when I was 27 for House of Reps in Lagos. So most of the big political players in Lagos at that time, including the current president, are people I know quite intimately. So out of disillusionment, I quit in 2007 and came here for further studies. So one is so, frustrated seeing what is going on, but I respect your tenacity, how you've played your part in this drive to make Nigeria a better place. And one is just, I watch your interviews with Ade Balogun most of the time, and we chat over them. I'm so impressed by the ideas that you're propounding. This idea of the new tribe is something that just resonates with me. So I'm happy to have this opportunity to cross minds to rub minds with you. You're a great mind. Thanks, and happy to meet you, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Ade. Let me see. It's Shijo Ade already now.
Good evening, Professor. Good evening, all the honorable guests that are here, participants. I'm so sorry. I was trying to log in. Try to unmute my system, but for some reason it got stuck. But I heard all the introduction, fascinating backgrounds that I can see and I can hear here. And to the professor, I've watched you, way back here in the United Kingdom on Ben Television. I always find your program, Patito Gang, very fascinating because that was my only, one of the connections that I have with regards to Nigerian politics. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for impacting those wealth of experience, knowledge, to young ones like us to engage and get involved in politics. So you were those people that inspired and pioneered the journey for people like me to engage in politics. So by the way, I have been involved in local government, elected as a councillor between 2019 and 2023 here in the United Kingdom. So yes, and I'm always connected to politics in Nigeria. So glad to be here, and thank you so much for our honorable chair who actually kindly invited me to be participant of this program. That's Adebalogu. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, somebody else just joined us, Moyosola Niron. Can you kindly introduce yourself to and tell us what you do? Thank you. And I'll do the same.
Thank you very much. Just like you mentioned, my name is Moyosola Niron Oladuni. It's a privilege to be here. I could say that I'm in the midst of a lot of people in the diaspora, but I'm at home, so I can feel the pains of the people more. And I'm an entrepreneur and also an active politician. I've been actively involved in politics since the year 2012 as a person. And I can tell you for free that we have practical experience of the challenges that everybody is facing in Nigeria. Prof has been a source of inspiration to some of us. I'm also an alumni of the Lagos Business School, where we've had the opportunity to know and read a lot about Professor Utomi, whose character and antecedents is a source of encouragement to some of us, and gives us hope that not every citizen of his generation is culpable and liable for the present crisis that we presently face in Nigeria. So I'm glad to be here, and I can assure you that we would give you live and the truthful experience of what is happening in Nigeria as we go on. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Oladuni. So I'm the last person. My name is Adebalogun. I always use Ade because my two names are Ade related, Adeolu Ademulegu. So I host the Atlanta Discuss. It's my baby. It's something that I started about 3 years ago, but we just went to YouTube roughly 8 months ago, and God has been sincere. I see myself as a tool to help create a better Nigeria. So in my opinion, we have been able to bring together people of like minds, patriots. We should be about 15. Some are driving back home to work. Hopefully they'll join us on the way. But to a very large extent, one thing we all have in common is we want to see a better Nigeria, and we all have a lot of respect for Prof because we see that he's showing leadership, practical leadership, something we lack very much in our climate. So without much ado, we've discussed, I've done the opening remarks, we've introduced ourselves. The purpose of the gathering is clear. Prof thinks we need a new tribe of Nigerians. We need a merit-based society. We have never used our best 11 for anything, something that is highly unfortunate, which is why we find ourselves where we are. Good people don't go into politics. But it's not as if, we're going to listen to Prof, but we also need to ask Prof. Prof is an old man now, he's an elder statesman. How did they allow Nigeria to degenerate to where it is, So it would be nice, Prof, before we attack the question and answer session, maybe you tell us those areas before. So,
Yeah.
tell us, and we don't mind listening to your stories about Asia, what you've done, where we're not. I love those stories. Your first, every time you spoke to Abdul Salam, IPB, all those people, what they have to say, because we don't know why we have such an armada of former head of state, and the ship must still look rudderless. It looks like there are no elders in the room. The quality of it's appalling, it's abysmal. We're worried that our votes don't count. We're buying needle for 25,000. Ventolin is about 30-something thousand asthma. So the problems is over. It's 1 million fold. So, Prof, please address us. We gave you 10 minutes initially, but we've increased it to 15. And since Dr. Fayemi is not here, you can take his slot too. So, and then after that, we move to the question and answer session. I'm sure you all have questions to ask. A lot of those questions will emanate even from things you have said and something we have written on. So, Prof, you have the floor, sir.
Well, thank you so very much. I'm so honored to be here. I'll start with a very small thing that produced a remark yesterday that made me worry. On Saturday, I was walking with my wife on the streets of Silver Spring, Maryland, and I was taking a Zoom call with a group of Nigerians who are on this new tribe project. Some were from here in the States, but the majority on that call were from Nigeria. And then my wife was saying to me, hey, somebody's trying to... A Nigerian was driving. It was like, 8-lane highway, not far from this Silver Spring station. And he saw me and swung around and parked on that highway. I mean, he didn't, literally cleared to the edge of the road, got out of his car and ran across 8 lanes and came across to where I was standing. And I said, hi, sorry, I'm on a Zoom call, but, hi, how are you? People on the call, please hold on. I'm just somebody has just come, must say hello, man. And the guy says to me, I am a Nigerian. I just saw you. I was driving and I saw you. And so I decided to pull up and come and say to you, for whatever it is worth, I want you to know that people appreciate the work that you have done all these years. I'm from Plateau State. And I said, and the people on the call, we're all hearing him. And I said, oh, thank you. I really appreciate this. But that was risky, the way you ran across, the road just to say hello. And I said, yeah. So anyway, that's by the by. But yesterday I had drinks in the evening with the former chief economist of the World Bank in Nigeria from back in OBJ's time, a German called Volker Treichel. And I was saying to Volker that, this opportunity I have to spend 1 year in Washington as a fellow and policy scholar at the Woodrow Wilson Center was for me an opportunity to be able to relax, walk around. It's not Nigeria where everybody can recognize me. But look at what happened on Saturday. I mean, and then Volker said something that was what is the reason I'm telling this story. It wasn't about the meeting, it was what Volker said. He said, well, I'm glad that Nigerians are reacting that way to you because there is a sense in which many people have given up on Nigeria. Nigerians, not Nigerians. I'm talking about a former chief economist of the World Bank in Nigeria. He says, look, to be very frank, in many policy-making circles around the world, people have basically written off Nigeria as a country with an elite that is so pathologically selfish they can't work in the interest of their country. But there are a few unusual people like you, and it's important or it's good that Nigerians let you know this because really, truly, most people have written off Nigeria. And I felt crushed. From a personal point of view, it should make me feel good. But when I got back home, I could hardly sleep. Listen to somebody who's, really a lover of Nigeria. It's not one of those guys. He really, as chief economist of the World Bank, I know all kinds of sessions we had talking about strategies that could make Nigeria stimulate real growth and all of that. So the fact of many people saying, look, forget Nigeria is enormously hurting. Again, to give another example, I was in Sweden for a global thought leaders meeting convened to review the U.S. Global, what they call it, every 5 years, the U.S. government does a survey of the world. It's think tanks, intelligence communities, and all of that. That was the survey that in 2000 suggested that if Nigeria continued the way it was going, to be a failed state by 2015, which we then assumed in Nigeria to be that the US said Nigeria would collapse or break up by 2015. Now, the follow-up study, the Global Thought Leaders Meeting that finally sits to reflect on what the experts have put together, was ceded to CIPRI, the Stockholm Peace Research Institute. And so they hosted that, and I had the good fortune, for whatever reason, of being the thought leader from Sub-Saharan Africa that was invited to that year's reflection. And during the course of the conversation, a very well-known global figure, because Chatham House rules, so I can't mention his name now, but a very well-known global figure who we all used to see like every day on CNN during the Balkan War, said, what is painful about Nigeria is that Nigeria has lost its strategic relevance in the world. He said, 20 years or so ago, no world power would want to do anything in Africa without pausing, even if it's for 1 second, and asking itself, how will Nigeria react? But today, anybody can just step into Nigeria's backyard without even giving a thought to Nigeria. That was 2005. By today, the general perception, small African countries are saying, what's this Nigeria thing, giant of Africa? Nonsense, you guys are big for nothing. Everybody's overtaking Nigeria. Even the Ghanaian economy is now projected in its chaos to be better than Nigeria's. When I hear those kinds of things, I can't sleep, because the potential to be much different has always been there. Not the braggadocio or boastful giant of Africa. No. Real leadership on the continent and real progress. So how did we manage to get here? How did my generation and the one before it manage to create this kind of mess? Well, at least I kept struggling throughout that period, and the evidence is there to suggest that we could do things differently. But it's still not an excuse. We failed. Could I have been more impactful on my generation? Perhaps. But I struggled. I laid down my life, literally. I mean, I survived assassination attempts in Abacha's time. In everything that I tried to do, I tried to show example of principles. I made a statement today, which I continue to make, and I ask anybody who can to test it. It's not a matter of test. Don't take. Nobody, living or dead, can say, I've ever asked for a bribe in my entire life. Nobody.
Enough of lamentations. Rotimi Chibika Mechi says Nigerians are unwilling, unable to do something, hear something, say something. He's in a state of despair. And that despair is very broad in the land. I have heard many people who have been in positions of authority just express the view that Nigeria is a hopeless situation. It is not. We are the reason Nigeria lies prostrate. Take the video that has gone viral of a professor saying to Alexis in class, leave my class, and none in the class got up. It shows a view of justice that has kept Nigeria down. I can say that I have always said why. But that's not about me. It's about what we are doing and we can do together as a collective to change the Nigerian condition. We're building this new tribe of patriots, which is essentially an aggregation of people driven by certain values to say, we will not only say something, we will do something. And one of the cohorts of the new tribe is the public accountability cohort. This cohort are made up of people who are coming, citizens from every walk of life, want to aggregate our voices, the will to do something by questioning those who have public authority and holding them accountable. That cohort includes the watchdogs to the various agencies of integrity in government, whether it's EFCC, ICPC, Public Complaints Commission, all of them. We have to watch government. Budget analysts, specialists are part of this cohort, and you should get involved with the cohort. The cohort goes to work next month and will sue government agencies that are not transparent. We'll go to court and will investigate, commission journalists, commission investigators to ferret out corruption in government in Nigeria, local government, state government, or federal government. We must do something if we're to save Nigeria for our children. The new tribe, open for business. Everybody should be in this tribe. Values shape human progress. The lawyers interested in free and fair elections, all of those groups will come together in this new tribe to show the path to a new Nigeria. This country can be saved, and we must begin with public accountability and the kind of work that the healthcare cohort is doing to take Nigerian talents from all over the world to make a difference in healthcare, as we're doing with infrastructure that will be based on private capital to open up our country.
Well, maybe I've been lucky that I didn't get put under enough pressure for the test. But it's just to make a point that you can live by principles. There are a number of reasons why Nigeria went awfully wrong. And a significant part of it is based on the values that we have lived. If you go back to where all these problems started from politicians who didn't, the narratives, and this, especially when I say these issues, Southwest, Southeast, and all of that, I am really pained. Well, first of all, being a complete Nigerian, they talked about how I was born in Kaduna, baptized in Jos, lived as an infant in Maiduguri, started school in Kanu, finished primary school in Guzo, started secondary school in Onitsha, and then moved to Ibadan. Most of my secondary education was at Loyola College in Ibadan, and then moved to University of Nigeria, Nsukka. I don't understand ethnicity. Honestly, I don't understand it. But we have let those silly emotions prevent the best from happening to our country. It goes way back. Goes way back to the fact that the independence government with NCNC winning the most votes in that election, but not enough to have a parliamentary majority, followed by the Action Group winning the second most votes, and the MPC coming way back third. And from what I understand of the history, Chief Obafemi Awolowo was willing to serve as Deputy Prime Minister to Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, but Dr. Azikiwe made what in my view is a fatal, flawed decision in the alliance with the APC, all in the bid, let's bring everybody together. If the South comes together and leads, maybe the North become alienated and move back. I don't know. I don't know whether that's the best decision or the wrong decision. But not following certain kind of principle created certain kinds of challenges from get-go. I can tell you that I spent quite a bit trying to do things to bridge that gap, that problem that started from these erroneous things. There's a gentleman, Reverend Daddy Thompson, that started an initiative called the YIGBA. The YIGBA aimed to bring leading Southeast and Southwest people to kind of try and bridge this. Daddy Thompson approached me to host those meetings. And I did host those early meetings in my home. In the first one, there were probably up to more than 100 of such leaders from the Southwest, even people who don't normally get involved politically, like Dr. Christopher Kolade were there, in addition to the traditional people like Chifai Adebanjo, Professor, I don't always seem to forget his name. I think last time I forgot a Yoruba Nation leader, Professor anyway, Professor Banji, yes.
Yakitoye.
Professor Banji Akintoye.
Yes, Professor Banji Akitoye, he was there, and many others from the Igbo side. They were the generals Ike Nwachukwu, Ndubisi Kanu, Professor Iruku, Giorgio Biozo. They were all there. And Professor Banji Akitoye made this statement that before Chief Awolowo died, he called himself and Chief Oladipo Ajayi, and said to them that there is something he keeps regretting and wished he had bridged, but they must make sure that they make this happen. This suspicious thing in Igbo-Yoruba relationship. Well, some of those emotions have allowed us to allow a scenario where people who don't believe in the best, who don't believe in merit, have taken hold of our country. Not just in the structure of the relationship between the regions, but even as individuals, even in the Southwest. I know most serious people from the Southwest will admit that those who have typically emerged in Southwest politics today are not the same quality of people that emerged in the 50s and 60s. And they are not the kind of people that ordinarily Southwest politics would embrace. But everybody has retreated into this emotion of, okay, there are people, and Nigeria has just become a very poorly governed society. And we're sliding and sliding. Every day it just gets worse. And so I've done all kinds of things to try and fight from a personal point of view to change the trajectory direction of our country. When the elections of the 12th of June were annulled, I was visiting, I voted, left the country 2 days later, arrived in Boston for a convention. I was there when the annulment took place, and I was very upset. I wrote a piece titled, "We Must Say Never Again." That became the rallying point for a protest against military rule. I was beaten as an executive of a multinational company. I came out on the streets to lead protests and was beaten by police on the streets of Lagos. Because I remember Ibru, the late Alex Ibru, publisher of The Guardian, when he saw me at lunch 2 or 3 days after one of those protests, said to me, "Do you still work for Volkswagen?" I said, "Yes." I can't understand you. You are protesting against the government as a senior executive. You go to the streets, police even beat you. I say, "Yes, I'm a citizen. I have a right." So you do your bit as an individual. It still doesn't exonerate you from your failure of your generation. And that is why I have consistently asked, okay, what ways can we impact? I started Patito's gang that has been referred to by a few people here, essentially to help create that culture, that awareness, that citizenship. People don't realize how much it has cost me to keep that program on air for 25 years. In Nigeria, where the private sector runs away from supporting anything that appears controversial or critical of government, I have literally funded production and airing of that show for 25 years from my pocket. Because I thought, well, legacy, what is our contribution? How are we shaping our society? Still, it hasn't amounted to enough. So the big question was, how much more? What do we need to do now that everything seems to be traveling south? Everywhere you go, people say, Nigeria, big for nothing. This is a country that has such incredible potential. So, piggybacking on a statement that values shape human progress, and that statement is not original to me. It came out of a colloquium at Harvard back in the mid-90s. I spent a year sabbatical writing a book, Managing Uncertainty, Competition and Strategy in Emerging Economies, at the Harvard Business School. And while I was there, there was a colloquium that was based on the remarks of a former Harvard professor who became a politician, Daniel Patrick Moynihan. Moynihan was a real sage. He served in the cabinets of both Republican and Democrat before he went to the Senate as a Democrat from New York. In fact, Hillary Rodham Clinton replaced him in the New York and in the U.S. Senate. And Moynihan said, when he was asked what the difference was between a Democrat and a Republican, after all you Americans, you all believe in the same capitalism and blah, blah, blah. He said, well, the Democrats, or Republicans are conservatives and Democrats are liberals. And what is the difference between a liberal and a conservative? Well, he said there are two truths that govern these people. The central conservative truth is that it is culture, that is values, that is responsible for the progress of a society. And the central liberal truth is that politics can change a culture and save it from itself. So in effect, what Moynihan was saying is that all progress is based on culture, on values. However, liberals believe that you can engineer a change of culture, whereas conservatives believe that, family values, these kinds of work ethic issues, these are the things that really make for progress of society. And so I thought, we've tried all kinds of ideas as individuals. Suppose we really create a tribe of people who believe in these ideals, who share certain values, and those ideals shape a political party or political parties, and we use that to, based on merit, find people who can offer direction, that we can redeem our country and the possibilities before it. And this is why the whole idea of the new tribe came up. And so the idea is to get Nigerians who really believe in the great possibilities of the Nigerian nation, who believe that some basic values need to be embraced. And once we embrace those values, though tribe or tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Like I said earlier, I think I understand why we are allowing ourselves to fall back, because we allow our emotions to overtake reason. Indeed, I'd like to introduce into these conversations some interesting work that's still going on at Harvard. They have set up a Center for Moral Cognition. In fact, looking at the crisis in America, with Trump and all of that, emotion, reason, their role in public life, in politics. And the director of that center is a professor called Joshua Green. He has written a nice book titled Moral Tribes, Emotion, Reason, and the Gap Between Us and Them. Nigeria is one of the most polarized societies in the world today, just like America is polarizing. The gap between us and them is preventing us from making public choice that's leading to growth and development. How can we bridge the gap between us and them? Values, and values. Those are the only things. And the work that Joshua Green and co are doing at the center at Harvard is to take neuroscience, psychology, and philosophy and bring them together in a way to explain why human beings behave in the ways that emotion is surpassing reason. Whereas a democracy, in a modern environment, to use the definition of Jürgen Habermas, really is about rational public conversation. You can't manage to get that going in Nigeria. You say, good morning. They say to you, who are you? Who do you support? I mean, the partisanship has become so gross that you can't, discuss policy in Nigeria anymore. So maybe I can talk too long on these matters. This is the basic driver, the motivation. How do we find people who share these things, who believe that we can build a great country? Because all of the ingredients are there for a great country. What we lack are leaders who look past these emotions to find reason that would lead to progress for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Spoke from the heart, clearly, like a patriot always. Thank you so much. So we're going to the question and answer session. We're about 9 of us here with you, so we're 10 in all, so that's good. So we scheduled this for 2 hours, so we have about 1 hour, 15 minutes. So we want everybody to participate. So let me start with
Dr. Fahimi still hasn't. Do you want me to call him?
He hasn't yet, yeah. So I don't know if you can call him while I'm talking, if it's possible. So I've tried to reach him. Maybe he's still airborne. So we'll start with Mr. Lu Ajibade. Do you have any question for Prof? So what we'll do is 2 people will ask their questions so that Prof will take the 2 at the same time. Then we'll move to another set of 2 people. So this, I'm going to call Mr. Ajibade. Then I will do Peter Ogurikwe with Lu Ajibade. So Lu, you have the floor.
Hi, Prof. Hi, everyone. Quick one.
All right.
I don't live in the past anymore. I want to fulfill it here. So as it is now, what is the strategy for the way forward? Because if we don't do anything, Nigeria would gap.
Yeah.
So something must be done. The question is, we are going to participate and give it a vote on my own and on others. But what is the path forward? Okay, I love the time they tried, and then I loved it when he said that to me. I love that time trial. It's a new Nigeria, and I'm ready to run with it. But what strategy to get us out of where we were to where we need to start over? Thank you.
All right. Peter Ogurikwe, are you there?
Yeah, man.
Okay, go ahead.
Do we have enough time?
Go ahead, please.
Good evening, everyone.
We'll accommodate you.
I'm curious, Prof. I was wondering, what was the error Awolowo said or requested those he called, to resolve? That's one. And then you made mention of culture, right? Now, the question is culture responsible for what's going on in the country now? And when you say culture, what kind of culture? Is it rooted on family bias, or is it an ethnic bias, or is it both? Is it a combination of both? Now, the main thing, because that we're trying to figure out is, why is it that, let's look at Nigeria as a business, and each and every one of us here once upon a time had the opportunity to be the CEO of a company called Nigerian. You look at the history so far. Why is it so difficult for those in leadership? I'm putting it in quotes because what they're doing is not leadership, right? Why is it so difficult for them as the CEOs, if I may, of the company Nigerian? Why is it so difficult for them to intentionally move the company, I'm going to refer to Nigeria as a company here, forward to progress? And let's say the employees are the citizens of the company. Why is it so difficult to understand that as an operating officer of an organization, if I treat my employees very well and fairly, they will give me their best. And in return, the organization progresses. So I'm trying to understand Because you see, when you look at most of those in leadership now, they have their kids come overseas, right? And give them the best education. But there seems to be the lack of empathy for the common man in Nigeria, the common man in the villages, in the rural areas, and the children of the common man. Why is it so difficult? Because when you analyze Nigeria and understand how blessed that region and that country is, I find it so difficult to understand why people who say they know better than every other person, elders at that, find it so difficult to improve on the lives of the less privileged within them. I'm just trying to understand it, because Nigeria has everything it needs to survive on the ground, in the soil.
Maybe I can cut in here and begin to respond to the
Questions,
starting from where we are right now, which is if Nigeria were a company, why is it so difficult for the CEOs and all of that to have this empathy? It is because the mindset that you are using to evaluate is completely different from that of those people. First and foremost, those people basically see themselves as entrepreneurs of power. You grab power, essentially you use it for transactions that advance certain interests that you have defined for yourself. Is that democracy? No, it isn't democracy, but they don't see democracy as you see it. They see the process of grabbing power as an investment from which they expect returns. And so the first thing that you think of in terms of returns is transactions that will profit your friends and profit yourself. This has been laced over with a certain narcissism, a certain almost obnoxious self-love that has become, when we talk about culture, the culture in Nigeria. The common good is difficult for them to see. They think that, look, to get this power, I had to spend so much money on these people who I give money to. So now that I have it, don't disturb me. This is my thing to do as I please with for this period of time. And then I need to put a lot more money aside so I can use to win the next time around. In that way, there is a weaponization of poverty. It is in the interest of those in power in Nigeria for Nigerians to be poor. They may not see it quite crudely like that, but that is the reality. If these people were middle class, well-paid people, they wouldn't need my 5,000 naira on election day, and I'm not likely to win. One of the reasons that Nigerian politicians fight tooth and nail to prevent the diaspora vote is that they recognize that people voting from abroad, self-sufficient, see a better world, will not vote for them. And this is one of the things that we must fight for, to ensure that we have a diaspora vote, so that people who are probably more rational rather than people who feel helpless are the ones who go to vote. What is culture? You asked. Culture is simply the way people do things. The way people do things. It's not, people think when we say culture, people think of tradition. Yes, okay, there are things in tradition that are part of culture. There's a Kabiyesi syndrome. Who can question you? There are Kabiyesi. That's part of culture. That's part of the value system. And it affects how the small man in Nigeria sees the question of accountability. Can you question Kabiyesi? He's the one who has power. Well, whatever he does, God will judge him. And that's the way the ordinary Nigerian basically sees power. And so it requires the better thinking of the diaspora type, for example, to say, no, you got to be accountable. There are many things we can talk about that illustrate how this happens in the way the Nigerian politician goes about the business. So there's something so obvious. You are running a company, you make your workers feel good so that they can produce. Now this guy knows that he cannot be there for more than X number of years. So he wants to pillage. The typical Nigerian politician is in Scotch earth war. And he has a limited amount of time to pile off for 10 generations what he can steal. So he doesn't think of the common good. This is why we say if we start from values, first of all, a value system that allows you to see that public life is about service, it's about the pursuit of immortality in the good name that you get, not about the size of your bank account. Look, I made a statement at a presentation I made at the Woodrow Wilson Center on Tuesday. As a Ghanaian high life singer called Ben Bracco. Ben Bracco says that any country where the politicians are richer than the businessmen is a country on the verge of collapse. In Nigeria, the politicians are generally richer than the businessmen. In fact, the businessmen go to eat off their hands to get this favor or that favor from them. Clearly, that's a country on the verge of collapse. In most societies, and those of you who live in the US here know that most American politicians are middle-class people. They are not the richest people in town. And so, even in their own life, if mortgage rates go up, it affects them. They might not be able to own a house. Most of Nigerian politicians, it doesn't matter what the exchange rate is, they're in a position to get more. And it's to show the disconnect. Take the example of at a time when people are really starving in Nigeria, that the National Assembly can actually vote to buy themselves 160 million naira cars per person. It makes a statement about the disconnect between state and society. Total disconnect. They feel nothing wrong with it. They're still doing everything business as usual. They're coming here for conferences, going back and forth, spending millions of, still budget padding, all of those things, even as their relatives are dying from the cost of APC or whatever it is, people to cure basic illnesses. So that is the center to all of this. We must create a people committed enough to setting values, defining public life, that they can proselytize the issue, set up fire teams that go out there and educate ordinary people, and build a broad base of people who can really vote and protect votes, so that only people of merit. Look, I'm saying these things are not new to us. One of my favorite examples I like to use, because the public person, everybody knows Onyeka Onwenu. Her father was a parliamentarian in the First Republic. By the way, in the First Republic, we had a citizen legislature. That means part-time members of the assembly. They come, they go back to their work, and so on. And Onyeka's father was a member of the National Parliament, and he was a secondary school principal in Port Harcourt. His means of transportation was a bicycle. He had a bicycle. Secondary school principal in Port Harcourt. And he would come to Lagos as MP And after the sitting, comes back to Port Harcourt and tries to borrow money from her mother, who was a trader. Nobody saw anything wrong with that. That was the way it was supposed to be. There were some lawyers and other more problems, but it was the mix in National Assembly in the 60s. But today, anybody who goes to Abuja full time, abandons the people, doesn't know what they suffer, and can take. Look, if you look at how much of, just take our budgets, national budget, how much goes to health care and how much goes to the National Assembly clinic compared to health care for 7, 8 teaching hospitals don't get as much put together as National Assembly clinic gets in the budget. Is it that madness? It doesn't make sense. And that's Nigeria. There is a certain narcissism, self-love of the political class that just prevents them from connecting to the people and serving the people. And this is what it's about. Sorry, let me. The first question was, remind me again.
Way forward. As the one's a solution.
Oh, way forward. Yes.
The strategy on the way forward.
Yeah. This history, true. I'm one of those who want to forget the history to really begin with going forward. And the way forward for me is to say to ourselves, what are these societies that have succeeded? What did they do to succeed? What were the values that drove their success? How can we take these universal values and make them what drive our society? There's a guy called Jonathan Clipperman. He wrote a book, The Fix. And basically what he tried to do was look at the world and look at countries that have managed to thrive in a world in decline. What did they do and do so well? Well, one of the chapters in that book was how Singapore dealt with corruption. We keep making statements, if we do not kill corruption, corruption will kill us. It is killing us. One of the only reasons that anybody of any common sense could have voted for Buhari is the hope that all the talk about corruption would make him deal with it. And that if all he achieved was to kill corruption, we would have made progress. Well, lo and behold, at least in my opinion, Buhari's government turned out to be the most corrupt Nigeria has ever had. So that's a huge, huge loss there. But if we decide, look, educate people to say the purpose of public life is immortality, that people talk about you long after you are gone, and literally recruit people of merit, of competence, who know that in going into public office, they will probably become poorer, but their names will live forever if they do a good job of it. That's a very important consideration going forward. That accountability is not disrespect for KBC, the governor or the rep. Accountability is about making public choice reflect the interest of the people. Going forward means ensuring that political parties, their business is the recruitment and socialization of society's best and brightest to go into public life to selflessly give of themselves for the advance of the common good. By the time we create all of this and we evaluate people, even the media, I mean, one of the tragedies of Nigeria is the co-option of the media. We look, as a 21-year-old youth corper, I caused a cabinet reshuffle in Nigeria. Because of the kind of reporting that we did back in those days. I don't want to go back into the story. I've told it, I think, one of my conversations with that day, probably. But the young guy entering journalism today is looking for how he's going to use journalism to make money. I mean, we didn't even think of that as youth corpers. And we gave so much trouble to government just to ensure that the right things are done in society. But the media today is a co-opted media. The reporter thinks of himself as a celebrity. And so it's just about writing fancy words, columns, and all of that. Those are all part of the values that we must change. And a new tribe, which can then, function through what we call cohorts. I have identified 14 cohorts through which the new tribe can organize itself. If 200-300 of us get into the public accountability cohort, we are accountants, we are all kinds of people, we encourage whistleblowing everywhere. Look, politicians are cowards. If they know that people are following them and are acting, they will behave properly, I assure you. So that's a cohort, public accountability cohort. I talked, I don't know, Ade, if you shared some of those videos that I made.
Yeah, I intend to after today. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you take the Ubuntu community cohort, this is where in every community, we identify problems that they have. Forget waiting for government to come and solve them. Right now, as we are, we say, okay, in Ileoluji, this is the big problem. In Nasarawa, Lafia, this is the big problem. In Aba, here's the big problem. How do we who identify with those places work together to solve the problem? My favorite community problem in Nigeria, I don't call it favorite, my most, obvious community problems, toilets. When my schoolmate, Aketi, was governor of Ondo State, I went one day to visit him, and I said to him, Aketi, look, how can you be here? Ondo is on public record one of the worst cases of public defecation in the world. People are peeing and pooing everywhere. If you just make that a goal of your administration, construct public toilets and all of that and stuff. Anyway, but that's just an example. But if as a cohort, this Ubuntu community cohort, we identify markets in our major urban areas and say, look, as a group, we will raise the money, do a block of toilets, 10, 5, whatever number of urinaries and toilets, arrange to hire people, keep them at the cleanest level, like anywhere in the world. We all travel. We know what a public toilet is in an airport in America and anywhere like that. Keep those toilets at that level for markets in every community in the country. What will be contributing to healthcare, to the quality of life of people, will be phenomenal. So you come to some village and you think their problem is not public toilets. Maybe it is water. And you use the know-how and know-why that you all have and the little money you can put together from amongst yourselves or whatever. And I don't know whether it's going to be a borehole or whatever, you make access to water available to the community. When these people in the communities think of public life, they will not think of 1,000 naira on election day. They will think, these people who give us these toilets or these, where are they? Who are you people? Please come and become our councillor and our governor. This is what the way forward that I am trying to inspire through this new tribe is like. So there are 14 cohorts of action, and there are 7 cohorts of organization. Because we can't just be doing things and we should be organizing. Because politics is three things really are critical in politics: organization, organization, and organization. It is, forget all these things that they do. Nigerian political parties don't know how to organize. They talk about structure, which is nonsense. They just have a face over which they use to rig election. But if we mobilize people properly and they protect their votes, these characters will be out of public arena very, very quickly. And then you replace them with people who are looking for immortality, who are looking to sacrificially give of themselves to advance the common good of all so that their great-grandchildren will hear about them. That's what public life is about. Okay, I think I'll stop there.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. So I'm going to give preference for those that are living in time zones that are very, very late in the night. So so now I'm going to do Biodun and Dr. Ibe. Dr. Ibe is in Moscow. Biodun is in Lagos. Then the next two sets after that will be Moyo Shori, Oladunya, and Shiju in London. Then I'll move to Dr. Riade and Femi. Femi is in Maryland. Dr. Riade, I think, is in Atlanta. So Biodun, you go ahead. When you're done, Dr. Ibe will go next. So Biodun, you have the floor. Well, okay. Biodun has been logged out. Dr. Ibe, you take the space.
Sure. I hope I'm audible.
Very, very. You're far away, but very audible.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
Once again, Professor, but I'm very honored to be able to ask you these questions. I've been listening very attentively. And I would also want to use the opportunity. I have a lot to say, which I cannot say because of the limit of time, and I'm not alone. A lot of people also need to speak. I'm very conscious of that. So I would, if given the opportunity, I would like to invite you to Nido, Russia, maybe any of our talk programs so that we can, also talk more on. I'll just ask a few of the questions I have on my mind. The first one is, you spoke about values, the need for us to have some kind of convergence on values. And it strikes me as though it's a Herculean task. The reason is, I think so, is quite simple. Maslow once talked about the hierarchy of needs. And in the hierarchy of needs, we know that physiological needs come before safety needs, before other types of needs. I'm going to speak, for example, to somebody who hasn't eaten for 3 days, telling him about values. Or you go to a bus conductor who is trying to, in a jegunge, and you tell him about values. He would think, he would sincerely not know how to relate with me if I do that, for example, because we don't seem to have solved some basic problems. Talk about self-esteem, for example. You also mentioned about people speaking good about us after we left the world. I can imagine people who are unemployed thinking about people's opinion about them. They don't care about their self-image or what people think about them or what will happen after they are gone. They can barely live for a day. A family in Nigeria living on $1 per day, 40% unemployment rate. I wonder if that person thinks about what people would think about him after he's gone. If he doesn't even think he will still be here. I wonder if I am crazy in thinking this way. I'm insane in thinking this way. But I would like to tap into your wisdom because I honestly don't know how it's possible to get this convergence under this situation. Then the second thing I would like to ask is, I sometimes say this, that in Nigeria, we haven't it seems like as if I'm not empathic. I have shown enough empathy. I really do. You can see from my first question that I have enough empathy. But I don't think that our suffering has collectively driven us together to put tribal differences, party differences, aside and understand that we need to not allow the elites, because the war, which it actually is whether we call it corruption war, selfish war, narcissism war, as you said, it's all a war of the middle lower class versus the elites. The elites are able to do what they are doing because there's a space and opportunity for them to continue doing it. If there was no space and opportunity for them to continue doing, they will not be doing it. And that space is provided by our ability to let them use divide and conquer tactics to separate us, whether it's in whatever group, whether it's tribe, whether it's party, whatever, they succeed in dividing us so that we don't have one voice. And the enforcer of power in anywhere in the world, whether it's called democracy or it's called military or it's called plutocracy or it's called whatever, the enforcer of the law is the military. If the military sides with the majority, no political elite can do anything. So I'm also thinking maybe it's not the elites who have the problem. Maybe it is us who has the problem. That we are not able to put aside these differences. I understand that the only weapon that works against us is divide and conquer. Please correct me, Professor, if I'm crazy, like I said. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I have other questions, but I won't ask them today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's take one more person before you respond. Biodun, are you there now?
Oh, yes, I'm there.
Okay.
Sorry, I've been moving, trying like a jackpot. I just move and come back. So sorry about that. I miss a lot from what Prof has said because I was actually getting a lot of things. But however, I think I have one or two things to talk about. Talking about the tribe, I want to believe the true definition of tribe has to do with the social group that has a common identity, common culture, common language. But I think one of the problems that we are facing, maybe that particular definition needs to be, to extend beyond that. For instance, if you are living in a community and you are putting that particular definition, that means already you are telling some people that you are not part of us. So it is a problem that we have to look at. And that takes me to the usual language of the politicians when it comes to the election. They will tell you all politics are local. When they tell you all politics are local, they are taking you back to that definition of tribe. And that is it. And we also know that the politicians that we have presently in Nigeria today is that the major tools they use, in fact, they are now using the tools to get at Nigeria. There are about three tools that I observe that Nigerians and politicians are using, even with the military too. I know that they have the tool they use on religion. They use another tool of ethnicity, that the tribe that we're talking about. And they also use another tool for the poverty. If you look at what we are facing currently in Nigeria now, you will even discover that tools, they are now using it against another tools. And at the end of the day, the people that are supposed to see, they cannot see. It's like trying to tell you that you can't see beyond us. That is the problem. If, for instance, people are hungry, like Prof has said, they weaponize poverty because they feel that if people are hungry, they will be powerless. In fact, to carry out placard for protest, they won't even be able to do that. But what they now do is that out of those people that they know that they have issue with poverty, They will now switch to another tool, which is the religion or the ethnicity, to divide the people that are already in that situation. So I want to believe that the problem we are facing presently, which Prof has been able to highlight, it has to do with certain languages that people that has come to stay in our society. Like the usual language of every politics is local, is a fraud-led language. That is what politicians will use when they get to a particular level. Even common community development association in an area, you find a situation whereby it will get to a level they want to have an election, they will tell you, no. This person cannot hold a particular position because it's not part of us. The next thing you see them driving a narrative that before you know it, they will pack their people, they will come and occupy the space. Maybe the space they are talking about, there's no more land in that area. They will be saying that. So these are things that has gotten to a level that as followers, we need to really address. The issue of the leadership, fine, we have leadership issue, but the leaders will emerge from the followers. We all know that in our area, this is the capable person that we know that we can send to the house or to represent us at the local government level. You find people, when it gets to that situation, they will tell you, no. The person is not a politician. It's not this. The person we need is this. But this person has been performing well at a particular level. So these are problems that we are facing in the country. And I know that it is deliberate from our leaders to make sure that we are divided, we are weak, so that we won't be able to see the right thing to do. So I want to put it this way, sir, and I want to bring it up as a suggestion, which I feel Prof can also look at it. I have looked at the situation in the country that we have 36 states in Nigeria. The states that we are having for instance, if somebody say Lagos State, no family is bearing Lagos. Nobody family is bearing Ogun State. Nobody is bearing Kaduna State. Is there any way we can do a kind of a reshuffle? Take certain states in form of name, take it to another place. For instance, if you bring Zamfara State to Ogun State to be there, nobody, unlike before that we just say, oh, it's a family name, you can't take it there. No, it's not, because we have had a situation like the whole Bende State. There's no Bende State. We have Edo, we have Delta, we have Osun State. Things are there. So that people, because we need to begin to look at this, our diversity, how to manage it well in such a way that people, we just know that, look, the mere fact that I'm from Anambra State does not mean that you should crucify me. How about if tomorrow now they shift it to your state and say that state is Anambra State, your state is going to another state. The same thing could be for even the state capital, so that people will just, because we need to see how we can bring unity. Because the way I see it, that the unity is fragile in such a way that we don't even know what to say. Thank God for the renewed hope, sir. That I'm not talking of this renewed hope. I'm talking of the new hope for the Nigeria that you are pushing, the new Nigeria project that you are pushing. That is the only thing that is keeping our youth down now. Some of them were not there during the annulment of June 12th, but they are there today and they are looking for a new Nigeria project. So I just look at it and say, okay, what can we do to dilute this notion of calling this, calling that by the name. Okay, if we do a kind of a swap, don't you think would be another solution to this tribal thing and bring inclusion into this? After all, we intermarriage ourselves and everything. So we can also be looking at that. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Go ahead, sir. Prof.
Thank you so much. Really brilliant ideas and questions. Well, let me begin by the very valid and important point made by Yve about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and how a person who is hungry does not begin to think about values. Yes, that is true in principle. In fact, I was going to give you an example. When people are really, really hungry, they don't behave normally. But Bangladesh is a country that a lot of progress in recent times. A couple of years ago, I decided to spend 3 weeks in Bangladesh visiting one of the biggest NGOs in the world called BRAC, the Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee, founded by an individual. And I say this to show the importance of individual action because this is what it is about in this new tribe. This guy's name is Hassan Abed. He's since passed on. Hassan Abed was working for Shell in London, and then wondered why his country was has unbearable poverty. Sold his house in London, took the money from selling the house, and went and started, back in the 60s, an NGO called BRAC. BRAC will become so big, it owned universities, banks, all kinds of business ventures, factories, everything. An NGO. In fact, I stayed in their hotel, in their head office tower. It was a 30-story building. One of the things at BRAC is that they managed to research enough into poverty and the poor that they recognize that if you give a group of the most poor people, they call them the ultra poor, you give them a loan to start a business so they can escape poverty, they will chop the entire loan money to solve problems they have immediately, and no progress will take place. So the BRAC did not give cash loans to the ultra poor. What they do is they give them what they call assets. For example, they can give you a cow as a loan. And every morning, their truck will come by and pick up your gallon of milk from that cow. And by 12 noon, they will credit your account with some amount of money. Then you begin to build and you grow. But if they were to say, okay, cow costs 2,000 naira or 20,000 naira, whatever, here's 20,000 naira. By next 1 week, 20,000 naira will be gone and there will be no cow to produce anything. So, poverty in desperation does anything. This is why our message is not necessarily directly to the poorest of the poor. We've broken down our message into groups. There is always the need for a vanguard for a revolution. And this is a revolution, whether it is a Castro type revolution or not, is a revolution trying to bring about massive change in society. And there needs to be a vanguard. And the vanguard are you who are not that ultra poor. You who can think about values and immortality. It is these values and the immortality that drive you to organize the poor and going down to the ultra poor. Look, it is also enlightened self-interest. The way Nigeria is going, those who take advantage of it are not so wise to understand the end game. The end game is that very soon Nigeria will be Somalia. There's no question about it, the way it's going. And at that time, I tell you again a story. The Guiding Light Assembly pastor, Wale Adefarasin, his 60th birthday, invited 2 keynote speakers and 2 friends, as it turned out. One was Yemi Osinbajo, who would later become vice president, and the other was myself. And we told 2 true stories that, I had to say, the spirit of the Lord is one. JB, Vice President Osinbajo, told the story of going to having been appointed by the United Nations to be on a committee to help this now stateless country called Somalia to actually begin to make laws, have a new kind of constitution and all of that. And when he got to the place, he was taken around some refugee camps. There was a gaunt old man carrying a bull, waiting for rice. Kind of looked familiar. It was just kept, maybe it looks like the guy. In the end, he couldn't, but then asked a question about the man he knew. That man used to be Chief Justice of Somalia, used to be escorted by outriders. And there he was in a refugee camp with a bull, literally begging for rice. Now, the story that I told, interestingly, was from Liberia. I was in Bloomington, Indiana, in grad school. My neighbor, my next door neighbor, 3 doors away neighbor, in the family housing area, was a Liberian. And one day I was coming back to my apartment in the afternoon, and I saw a U-Haul van in front of his place. I said, "Sai, where did they go?" His name was Sirenius 4. He said, "Look," his people said to him, "Look, what is he wasting time doing PhD? All kinds of opportunities at home. What's he doing with the PhD? He should come home." So Sirenius 4 abandoned his PhD and returned to Liberia. During the course of all advancing in life, Sirenius 4 became ambassador of Liberia to Nigeria. The embassy was then on Idejo Close, in Idejo Street in VI. At this time, I was living in VI myself, as an executive in industry. And they had a problem. Babangida had donated $25 million to help the government of Liberia. And the people in Nigeria said to them that if you want to get this money out, you need to get a consultant. You know the corruption in our country. And one consultant, funny enough, a guy who would later run for president of Nigeria, Ibrahim Tufa, was the consultant that they were told to hire to help them get the money that was donated to them by Nigeria out of the ministry. Anyway, they used to, go, it's a long story, I won't be able to tell the story here. But because Sai knew me and he would come to my house and, he would be problems. And one of the stories, in fact, he would come with their president, who also, by the way, is an Indiana person, the president they had at that time, Professor Amos Sawyer. In fact, he returned to Bloomington to teach after he finished serving as president of Liberia. And Sai would say to me sometimes, "Look, you Nigerians amaze me." He said, you pour Nigerian blood like water on the streets of Liberia trying to save us from ourselves. And we are very grateful. You spend Nigerian money like money is, growing in the trees to save us. And we are very grateful. But what I cannot understand is why you guys are doing the same things that got us where we were. And not expecting that will happen to you. He said, "Look, when I left you in Bloomington to run back home I got home, life was good, the government was behaving badly, and I was going to speak up that this is wrong, this is not the way things should be. But I said to myself, Sai, if you speak up now, you will lose your privileges, your Mercedes will be gone. So I kept quiet. And then a group of staff sergeants and sergeant majors took over the country.